Hello and welcome to another installment of Outlaw Bookseller. Today I want to talk about Isaac Asimov, and I've undergone a conversion in the last couple of years. I was never really very interested in Asimov, and the last couple of years I've become a born-again Ikeite, and I've thoroughly enjoyed reading his work. I still think it's flawed, I still think it's often simplistic, I still think it's often overrated, but I am now enjoying it. And I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to put it into context for you because, of course, this year we've all seen trailers of Foundation coming up on the TV, and we're all looking forward to it. It looks very exciting indeed. It looks quite different to a lot of the material in the books. And of course, Asimov was never a big one on the physical description of his worlds, so they've had to use quite a lot of imagination. They've changed the sex and race of a lot of the characters. Again, they'd have to because nearly everybody in the Foundation trilogy is white and male. And that strikes me as a bit unrealistic for the future. And it doesn't really look a lot like what we're used to, apart from maybe the covers. This is a copy of Second Foundation, which is, of course, the third Foundation novel from the 70s, the lovely Chris Foss cover that we know and love. So I remember looking at these when I was a kid and thinking, oh, the covers are so cool. I really want to read these. But when I finally got around to reading Asimov, my first Asimov was actually I, Robot. This is a hardcover reissue of iRobot from circa '86 when Granada, part of the Collins Group, became Grafton. And these are quite uncommon now, but iRobot has pretty much been in print all the time I've been bookselling, which is about 37 years, and it's probably been in print for about 50 years non-stop, maybe even longer. And these are the early robot stories by Asimov. So I'm going to let you into a secret. The secret with Asimov, if you're a literary reader and a sophisticated reader of SF, so if you prefer things from the 1950s onward and you like people like Philip K. Dick or the New Wave writers, you'll probably find Asimov a bit dull. The fact is that his early work, which is primarily composed of the Foundation novels and some short stories, is pretty clunky in its style. And also, so are the early robot stories. They're puzzles. They're not really very exciting. I have to admit, I've struggled to get through this book. I've tried many times, never got through. I'm going to try it again soon, though, at some point. So the secret of reading Asimov is not to read Foundation first. Even though Foundation was written before the robot novels, the Foundation novels, which were first published as magazine serials and fixed up in the early 50s into books, take place in the same universe as the robot novels, but they occur afterward. So if you want to work in terms of internal chronology, and I'm not always a huge fan of that, I suggest you begin with the first of the robot novels, which I have here somewhere, which is The Caves of Steel. By this point, I think this is about 52, 54, Asimov's style had matured, it was less clunky, and he was ready to take on a novel and deliver something really spectacular. And something that nobody ever talks about with this book is the huge influence that it and its sequels have upon Philip K. Dick's To Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. The central character is an Earthman called Elijah Bailey, and he has a robot sidekick forced upon him. And they undertake some great detection stories on Earth and other planets in the future. And these are set before Asimov's Galactic Empire novels, of which there are three. One of them, I've got one here. This is The Currents of Space. Again, this is a Grafton 80s reissue, nice hardcover. And there are three of those. And then the Foundation novels come after that. So there's three sequences that fit into a future history. When I read The Caves of Steel a couple of years ago, I really, really, really enjoyed it. It's not Ulysses. It's not The Odyssey. It's not D.H. Lawrence, but it is a cracking read. Very entertaining, good characterization, depicts a future dystopian Earth, and it's absolutely marvelous. Its immediate sequel, The Naked Sun, is also really, really good. Really enjoyed that as well. And then Asimov left writing fiction by about 1960 for a very long time and concentrated on non-fiction. He'd already racked up a load of awards and things by then. But he returned in the 80s to writing much bigger novels, which generally got slagged off critically. And it's a shame because I actually really like them. I'll just digress a moment again. There's a nice hardcover of The Naked Sun. There you go. Picked that up recently. These are really hard to come by. Cost the earth you can find them. Luckily I got this very cheap. There's not many of them out there, because Granada and Grafton, as they became in the mid-80s, did a reissue program of Asimov. Lovely with Chris Foss covers. You can't go wrong. Beautiful stuff. Get them reissued is what I say in these jackets. Anyway, in the 80s, Asimov returned to the robot world, and he did 2 books, The Robots of Dawn, which was actually the first one I read. I cheated. I bought this from a friend very cheaply. Not an uncommon book. It's quite easy to get. And I always loved the Foss covers, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. It's a bit strange. There's a bit of obsession with toilets in these books, or as they're called in them, personals. There's an awful lot about people's, privacy and toilets in these, which is quite interesting since we're in the days of the toilet wars over the whole sort of trans unisex issue. So this kind of throws them into sharp relief. So, when you go to a personal, take care, watch out for robots. And I really enjoyed that. And after that one, I read Robots and Empire. And this is where it gets really clever because, well, I'm not going to do any spoilers, but you won't understand what happens in Foundation as much as you could if you don't read the robot books first. And in the TV series, one of the major characters from the robot novels actually appears, which he doesn't in the Foundation novels because he wasn't created there. So my advice is read the robot books first. Don't read I, Robot first. Forget the Will Smith film. In fact, forget any film with Will Smith in it, especially if it's a science fiction film. Though, okay, well, you're allowed to watch Independence Day because that is quite good fun. But go to The Caves of Steel, The Naked Sun, The Robots of Dawn, and Robots and Empire, and then you're ready to tackle Foundation and you'll get a lot more out of it. That's my advice for reading Asimov. Ignore the early clunky stuff, come back to it later, give it another try, move on to the more sophisticated books from the 50s and the 80s. Never mind the critics say these big thick 80s ones they're ponderous in times, they're slow in times, but they are better written, they have a lot more emotional depth, and they're really enjoyable. So that's my tip. If you want to enjoy Asimov, get away from the clunky early stuff, get into the later, more sophisticated stuff. And when you read this, you'll be amazed how influential it obviously was over Dick when he created Blando's Dream of Electric Sheep and Rick Deckard. Anyway, that's Outlaw Bookseller signing off for now. Remember, don't call it sci-fi, always call it SF. Bye for now.